I mean, that son, you know, is really unbelievable.
Mr.
I mean, Mr. His royal. Yes. Yeah, no, I never imagined that we'd ever have a president like this. And I hope we don't ever have another president like this again. I never even imagined there would ever be a situation in which the president of our country was celebrating hundreds of Americans losing their jobs.
I mean, the reality is that the Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House. And so everything that happens, from this poor economy to the terrible decisions around tariffs to the record number of farmers that are filing for bankruptcy, to the illegal firings, to the corruption as it relates to persons like Tom Homan, to the unreasonable prosecutions of those like James Comey. Let me be clear. There is only one person and one administration that this falls on. There's only one party that controls it all. And
Trump reportedly burst into a budget meeting demanding a refund, as if the national debt came with store credit. Before he could find the return desk, Jimmy Kimmel and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett showed up armed with more proof than the IRS. What followed was total chaos wrapped in comedy. Two sharp shooters walking into a circus, taking aim at the ringmaster and popping every balloon of ego in sight.
Coming to you from the no longer embattled city of Los Angeles. We are safe, we are sound, thanks to our president who saved us from ourselves by calling in the National Guard to stop a conflict that never started but could have, had he not acted to prevent an entirely fabricated crisis from spinning out of his imagination and onto our streets. Thank you, Mr. President.
License when, for the first time in the history of this country, we had a president that was concerned about immunity because he knows that he does not like to follow the law. He doesn't care about the law, yet he's claiming that he's sending in these troops illegally so that he can bring about law and order.
It wasn't politics. It was a live, televised crash of delusion. Jimmy Kimmel didn't warm up. He went straight for the knockout. No buildup, no hesitation, just a sharp attack on Trump's presidency that hit harder than any late-night joke in years. Kimmel targeted Trump's biggest weakness, his ego, a planet-sized target. He mocked Trump's habit of bragging, saying the man could lose a golf game by 20 strokes and still call it a win. With clean precision, Kimmel joked that if Trump's confidence were contagious, America would be the most humble place on earth. Not even Trump could tweet his way out of that irony.
Of the Trump government shutdown, there's been no progress of any kind. Hundreds of thousands of federal employees are working without pay, including air traffic controllers, which is insane. Why they don't have a special category for the people who keep the planes from crashing, I don't know. But this was the scene yesterday just over the hill from us in beautiful downtown Burbank.
We just spoke to air traffic controllers here at Burbank Airport in the last few minutes, and they can now confirm that they will be heading home at 4:15 this afternoon. As of 4:15 this afternoon, there will be no air traffic controllers inside of that tower right.
Kimmel wasn't just telling jokes. He was breaking down delusion. He exposed Trump's obsession with ratings, polls, and applause as the never-ending punchline of a reality show. To Trump, leading a nation still feels like hosting The Apprentice. Crowds cheer, someone cries, and he fires whoever disagrees. Kimmel nailed it perfectly, saying, "Trump doesn't govern. He auditions for attention every day." The bit hit deep, showing what everyone already knows. This presidency runs on attention, not progress.
Thank you for sending troops to occupy all of these Democrat-run cities, whether we want them or not, and we do not. You know, after his big successes stopping nothing here and in Washington, Trump is sending the National Guard now into Portland and Chicago. He's sending the Texas National Guard into Chicago, all dressed in camouflage, by the way.
Then came the heavy shots disguised as humor. Kimmel tackled Trump's absurd idea of cutting pay for furloughed workers during the shutdown, and the irony was brutal. A man living in a gold tower questioning whether working Americans deserve their paychecks. Kimmel didn't hold back, calling it the kind of cold logic that comes from someone who sees empathy as weakness. No exaggeration needed. The absurdity was enough. The self-proclaimed hero of the working class can't even keep the lights on or pay his staff. The hypocrisy practically wrote its own joke.
Asked today whether the furloughed employees would get retroactive compensation once the shutdown's over, which is required by law. But, you know, the law can be a very ambiguous thing.
Is it the White House's position that furloughed workers should be paid for their back pay?
I would say it depends on who we're talking about. I can tell you this, the Democrats have put a lot of people in great risk and jeopardy, but it really depends on who you're talking about. But for the most part, we're going to take care of our people. There are some people that really don't deserve to be taken care of, and we'll take care of them in a different way.
Kimmel then turned to Trump's endless fight with the media, and the roast didn't stop. Trump's threats to cancel broadcasting licenses over bad coverage became comedy gold. Kimmel compared it to a kid banning bedtime stories because he wasn't the hero in them. A perfect image of Trump's fragile pride. The crowd laughed, but the warning was real. Kimmel reminded everyone this wasn't just entertainment. When a president treats free speech like an annoyance, democracy stops being truth and becomes a stage for one man's applause.
Illinois state and local officials strongly opposed troops being sent into the Windy City. President Trump responded to that by calling for the governor and mayor to be jailed. That's a normal thing for presidents to do, right? This campaign to own the libs and deport everybody with a vowel at the end of their name is the passion project of a sick, bald individual named Stephen Miller. He is Trump's deputy chief of staff, and he is doing everything he can to turn this country into a militarized zone.
While Kimmel unleashed the humor, Jasmine Crockett came in with precision politics. Her responses to Trump's childish insults weren't defensive. They dismantled him. Every jab bounced back. Crockett mocked his habit of mispronouncing names, his clumsy stumbles on Air Force One stairs, and his attempt to look strong while showing insecurity. But she didn't stop at jokes. She hit his core. Crockett said what most politicians won't. Trump's whole image is an act, pretending to be tough, caring, and winning. Each word widens the gap between show and truth. Then she dropped the knockout, calling him an old white neo-baby. It wasn't just name-calling. It was a diagnosis. His empire wasn't earned. It was inherited. His greatness is just privilege in disguise. Crockett didn't argue. She exposed him.
She's right. Trump met at the White House today with the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney. This poor guy, Trump slapped a 35% tariff on Canada after claiming Canada is a significant source of migrants and fentanyl entering the United States. And now, in order to get relief from that tariff, Carney has to promise he'll cut off the flow of drugs coming over the Canadian border, which shouldn't be difficult because of all the fentanyl seized at the U.S. border last year, 0.2% of it came from Canada. So basically what Carney has to do is like convincing your toddler you got rid of the monster under his bed.
Crockett's takedown wasn't a roast, it was Judgment Day. She didn't rely on insults. She exposed the deep hypocrisy behind Trump's brand. The man shouting law and order spends half his time dodging cases. The so-called billionaire has filed for bankruptcy more times than most people switch phones. The patriot who mocks veterans and turns national security into personal marketing. Crockett didn't attack. She revealed. Her accuracy hit harder than any joke. Together, Kimmel and Crockett became an unstoppable tag team. Comedy met truth, leaving Trump stuck in his contradictions. Kimmel handled the absurd. Crockett broke down the fake. Then Kimmel circled back to Trump's obsession with himself, mocking his hunger for applause, his self-praise, and belief that reality bends to repetition. Trump could say the sky is green, and when people see blue, he'd call them fake Americans. The crowd roared, but the truth under the laughter was chilling. Trump's world runs on noise, not facts.
But the point of it that I try to make for a lot of people is that there are people that wanted to say, well, I'm not an immigrant, so that's not my problem. And they taking our jobs anyway, according to Trump, right? And so now we're seeing that, like, no, it is your problem. It is all of our problems because immigrants contribute to this country. Stop falling for the okie doke. Stop believing the lies that they are putting out there and the terrible racist tropes that they are constantly using to rile people up. It is time to recognize that while you thought the enemy was the immigrant, or you thought the enemy was the trans person, or you thought that the enemy was the black folk, or you thought the enemy were the women, when the reality is that the only person that is harming you right now, if you are struggling to make sure that you can pay your bills, if you're struggling to feed your family.
Crockett moved from jokes to justice, showing how behind every Trump scandal lies real harm. While he rages online, regular Americans suffer. Delayed services, shaky markets, and a government that looks like a circus. She broke it down clearly, saying Trump's bold leadership is really reckless guessing. She joked that if cheering fixed inflation, Trump's fans would have saved the economy already. She painted him as a man so hooked on attention that silence feels like punishment. His rallies aren't to inspire, they're to feed his ego. It was funny, but painfully honest. Then Crockett turned to his legal troubles, saying a president with more court dates than cabinet meetings isn't a sign of stability. Each case showed how much time he spends protecting himself instead of helping others. Her final point hit hardest. Leadership isn't about ego or excuses. It's about accountability. And in that area, Trump's record speaks louder than his rallies.
Couple of things here. I don't know that I'm as confident as they are. I do believe that this is a call to action for the American people, as you were just discussing how upset the American people are on both sides of the aisle. I think that this is a good opportunity for those Republicans that believe that transparency is paramount to go ahead and call their elected representatives. We've seen so many of these senators that have decided that they won't run for re-election because they understand that what Trump is doing overall is absolutely killing their opportunity to seek re-election. So some of these House members, they need to feel the pressure of their constituents.
The brilliance of Kimmel and Crockett's roast was its balance, comedy mixed with consequence. Every laugh had meaning. Kimmel revealed the nonsense. Crockett exposed the risk. Together they turned Trump's presidency into a tragic comedy too wild for parody. The man who promised to drain the swamp just filled it with gold-covered gators. The genius surrounded himself with people who clap on command, mistaking flattery for loyalty. Every boast became a blunder. Every denial screamed guilt. Kimmel imagined life in Trump's head, an endless loop of praise and outrage. He joked that if Trump's brain were a TV channel, it'd be called Me News, 24 hours of self-worship. The joke worked because it felt real. Trump's refusal to take blame isn't just funny, it's dangerous. When leaders reject truth, corruption doesn't fade. It grows. Crockett built on that, showing how Trump's power depends on victimhood. He plays the poor billionaire, the underdog in his own empire. Every scandal becomes proof of persecution. She ripped that myth apart, showing his followers defend not truth, but his false martyrdom.
Every day he says something that would rank right at the top of the most ridiculous things any president has ever said. And the people who work for him, they can't get enough of it.
What a difference the presidency makes, Jesse, right? I mean, we are now totally over that destructive, stupid era of toxic masculinity. And now we're in an era of real masculinity, thanks to the bold, muscular leadership of President Trump and our Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth.
It sounded better in the original North Korean, but you get the idea. He's got bold and muscular.
Kimmel switched to Trump's global image, painting him as a meme among world leaders. The man who brags about global respect is often the joke at summits. Kimmel recalled his famous blunders, mixing up deals, misreading speeches, and staring at a solar eclipse without glasses. Perfect symbols of arrogance meeting ignorance. His punchline hit hard. America's allies don't deal with Trump, they babysit him. Crockett grounded that humor with facts. Behind those mistakes are real costs. Farmers hit by tariffs, small businesses hurt by chaos, and allies slowly backing away. Trump's unpredictability doesn't show strength, it shows disorder. Leadership built on ego always cracks. The louder he shouts, the weaker his base gets. Kimmel wrapped it up by mocking Trump's endless rebrands. Every scandal a new slogan, every failure a flashy nickname. He said it's like a failed show reboot. Same chaos, new tagline. In the end, Trump didn't make America great again. He made late-night TV unbeatable.
Not only is this incredibly dangerous and unnecessary, it's also just dumb. Trump is reported to be seriously considering invoking the Insurrection Act, which is a law from 1807 that would allow him to use the military to enforce his rules. This guy can't keep his insurrection in his pants anymore. Trump and his buddies on the right-wing media are talking about Portland like it's a scene from The Last of Us, when the reality is, this is what these troops are being called in to stop.
Crockett ended her part by turning Trump's chaos into a civic lesson. She urged Americans to look past the noise, reminding them that leadership isn't performance, it's duty. The presidency isn't therapy for the ego. It's a job that needs skill, care, and honesty. All traits Trump avoids like subpoenas. Her words hit like closing arguments in a trial the whole country's been watching. Together, she and Kimmel left Trump standing in his own contradictions. The man obsessed with attention got it, just not the kind he wanted. Their mix of humor and truth turned the spotlight into interrogation. What made their roast sting wasn't the comedy, it was the accuracy. Every joke came with evidence. Trump's empire runs on illusion, but comedy tears illusions apart. Kimmel and Crockett didn't just roast him, they proved that laughter can be resistance. When power becomes parody, satire becomes justice. And this time, justice didn't hold back.
To sign off. I do believe that this is not political, and I do believe that it is a moral issue, because there is no way that you could hear anything that these survivors have said and feel like it's political. In fact, we know that a number of those survivors are actually Trump supporters, and they are so disappointed that he has now decided that this is nothing more than a Democratic hoax. Not to mention, we had the Speaker of the House sit and listen to these survivors in a closed hearing, or not a hearing, but a closed roundtable meeting, and then come out and say that the President of the United States was an informant that helped to take down.
By the end, you could almost picture Trump glued to the screen, fuming, thumbs ready to tweet revenge, but realizing no post could erase the sting. Because once comedy turns you into a punchline, you stay one. Kimmel and Crockett made sure of that. They didn't just mock him, they rewrote how to challenge power with humor and truth. Their brilliance came down to one fact. When someone builds power on lies, it only takes a few sharp jokes to make it fall apart. Kimmel's sarcasm and Crockett's fire weren't just funny, they were reminders that even the loudest voice can be silenced by truth. Trump's problem isn't the laughter, it's that the jokes hit because they're real. He can dodge questions and rewrite stories, but he can't escape the reflection they showed. This wasn't just roasting, it was reckoning. The moment laughter became accountability. As Trump spins new tales, Kimmel's wit and Crockett's courage echo as proof that no slogan or spin can drown out the truth.